Okay, my name is Frances Ashton, and I live in the city of Nottingham now. I've lived in Nottinghamshire, Nottingham for 45 years, and I love it. It's my home. I class it as my home, although, as you can tell from my voice, I'm not from round here. um, I came to Nottinghamshire in the 70s. My three children, two boys have grown up to be and to live here as well. And I'm rambling and I don't know what I'm saying here, so I'll have to edit this bit. So get back on track. Right, so my two sons, I have two grown-up sons. One lives in Helsinki and one lives here in Nottinghamshire with my two grandchildren. And prior to retirement 2 years ago, I worked for Nottingham City Council, and I was a service manager in the highways department. So I did road safety, highway engineering and all that kind of stuff. And my biggest achievement was I was highways client for the tram. So I built the tram. That's what I tell my grandchildren anyway. And that's about it, really. Since retirement, it's been quite an odd feeling. It was such a busy time when I was working, and then retiring left me a bit bereft. It was time. I was 70 when I retired. So I found it quite difficult. I found it quite difficult finding a role. A sense of purpose. I have no sense, I still haven't quite got the sense of purpose. I think I was getting there when lockdown came around, I was just beginning to get out of this, not slough of despond, that's far too dramatic, but just general malaise, And then this year it started off quite traumatically. My mum was one of four sisters, and my mum had died a couple of years ago, but earlier on this year, two of her sisters died, and so I've only got one left. And that was quite awful. I come from a large family in South Wales, so the funerals were splendid, but that's about the height of it. It was really quite bad. And then when I would have been ordinarily going down to Wales quite a lot to stay with my elderly aunt, that couldn't happen. And so it was quite difficult. I felt I was here all on my own, grieving for my aunts. She was down there. She wasn't necessarily on her own, but she was shielding. She's 85. She was shielding very diligently. And so she was on her own as well. And it was quite difficult. It was quite difficult. So that was the start of lockdown. And wondering whether this really was a pandemic or whether it was just Boris Johnson's another fuck up. So, it was kind of wondering what to do. Then they started saying that all 70-year-olds were vulnerable older people, which fucked me off tremendously. I do not think I'm a vulnerable older person. Well, I don't know many old people that think of themselves as vulnerable older people. And my friends in the street here didn't think they were vulnerable either, and they're about the same age as me. So we were long discussions about that. Anyway, lockdown continued and continued and continued. Mostly it was okay. Mostly. You get moments of frantic activity. So in the beginning I decided, right, I'm clearing out the house. Everything's going. Absolutely. On his last visit, my son, who lives in Helsinki, said to me, you do realise, ma'am, all this is going in the skip when you're gone. So I thought, well, maybe it should be me that puts it in the skip, and then the more valuable things can remain. So I had a good go. I started upstairs. I went round bedrooms and collected things and put them in bags and sorted out the spare room where everything just gets dumped. Everybody's got a room like that. So I did all of that, and then realised when I've got about 10 bags worth of stuff that all the charity shops and the rubbish tips were closed. So now I store bags of rubbish in my spare room. Nowhere for it to go. So that was kind of, so that activity was gone. You couldn't do that. Couldn't go to the gym. I go to the gym regularly 3-4 times a week normally, and couldn't do that. So it was a case of trying to find something, an activity that would keep me going. So I started walking, and everybody was very kind. People were ringing up saying, can I get you something from the shops? Neighbours and people, we're going to Sainsbury's, can we get you stuff? But I decided that I would try and be as self-sufficient as possible. So when I really needed, if I really needed anybody, I could call without feeling tremendously guilty. So I'd go out every day and walk. I don't like walking. But I went out walking because I couldn't do any other exercise. And first of all, I'd walk just around this area, the Whatcom Circus area. And then I started going further afield. I'd stop at the co-op and get bread, milk, cheese, whatever from there and bring it home. And I'd do that 3-4 times a week. And it gave me a purpose to go out. I had to go out. And I slowly got further and further. And then I bought a new pair of sneakers online. And when the sneakers came, they got a little doodad in it that linked to an app on my phone that told me all sorts of wonderful things, like the cadence and how long my steps were and how many times I was in the air and how many times I was on the ground. Just gobsmacking. Didn't understand a clue of it. But it also told me how fast I was walking. So it kind of became a goal, a training goal, to go further and to go faster. And so that was my main aim during lockdown. That kept me busy. And then my gym decided they would start doing Zoom lessons and stuff. So hence the weights and mats and things all around here. I still haven't put them away. So 3 times a week I would be stretched out on the floor here, grunting and groaning, lifting weights and doing crazy things. My neighbours must wonder what was going on because it was so hot. All the doors and windows are open and there's me going, it was not an elegant sound. So on the whole, I kept busy, keeping fit and keeping active, which has been a hard-won thing for me. About 6 years ago, I was not fit and active, and I've become more. I've got my bounce, as I like to say, I've got my bounce back. And in September, I'd had a knee operation, another replacement knee. So it was about making sure that I didn't kind of fester into a little wizened old lady. Well, wizened, no, but and so yeah. So it's been a nice experience. It's been a thoughtful experience. Some days, as I say, you get up and you do the gym class, or you go for a walk, or read a book, listen to audio books, hundreds of audiobooks, read, not hundreds, but quite a lot. I must have listened to about 20, maybe 25 audiobooks, and read maybe 10, 15 books in a very short space of time. So there was that. Those were the activities. But then there's those moments of dreadful silence where you don't know what the future is. I've always been an optimistic person. I've always looked for the fun and the good and the whatever I can make out of something. Even the most trying times, you think, well, that happened, or that was good. Just to make it, a bit Pollyanna-ish, but it keeps me going. It's what I like to do. But I found there were days when I found it incredibly difficult to think positively of the future and to wonder how and where we were going. Not least from the pandemic. The pandemic always brings that element of, and any pandemic, if you lived through anything, would that unease, that sense of unease about people. And I am a hugger. I love hugging people. I love meeting people. I like being with people. And that element of people that you know and love being dangerous, I found difficult. I did find difficult. And stepping away from people, you know, when you walk and people are coming towards you, moving away from people rather than just smiling and saying hello and moving on. That was strange and very counterintuitive. But there were days here when I was sat in the living room, or invariably in the garden, because it was such lovely weather. God alone knows what it would have been like if it had been your usual English spring of damp on damp on damp. But it was beautiful weather, so I managed to sit out in the garden and get a bit of a tan and generally potter. But even so, not nice. It wasn't nice. And I missed people and I felt very depressed. Wasn't helped by our esteemed government's lack of anything remotely resembling a government, but that did raise my blood pressure and keep me going. I mean, I follow quite a few people on Twitter. I love Twitter, and I follow quite a few people on Twitter. And there were some days where I just couldn't look because I was busy and I was happy and I was all right. So I didn't really look then. But when I was in this little slough of despond bit, I would get on Twitter and my blood pressure would go up and my anger would raise. And then, right, okay, fine, now we'll go and do something, because I was so angry. I needed to move, you know. So that was quite good in an odd kind of way. My neighbours have been great. I have a couple who live next door, and they've been fantastic. They take the bins out and bring them in, and they're very kind. And a neighbour next door who plays music on a piano. She plays beautifully, and as it's semi-detached, I can hear her some days playing something beautiful by Beethoven or Mozart, and it's very lovely. And then my friends across the road, we decided almost right at the beginning that we would meet. So, and of course it was lovely weather. So we would go on this, in our street. My side is the the shadier side. So we'd meet on their side of the road, 3 meters apart, bring our own tea and our own chair and sit on the pavement and chat, you know, about the daily things. And we do that 2 or 3 times a week. And the CPOs used to come round. And we're 2 meters apart. We'd be very guiltily saying, we're all right, we're all right, we're all right. But they just smiled and walked on. That kept me going as well. It's just that knowledge, you know, that there are other people around that are more or less the same as you, thinking more or less the same as you, and challenging you to get out of the house and do something. Yeah. It's gone on enough now. I didn't see my son or my grandchildren, only on Skype. And I missed that. I missed them running in through the house, shouting Granny Franny and causing disruption and wondering where the biscuits were. And my son in Helsinki became poorly, and that was very difficult because I wasn't able to go and visit him and, pick him up, carry him home. So family bits have been divorced from my daily life because that's the only way I could cope. So putting them over there, knowing that they're there. James used to ring 2-3 times a week, never rung before. Not unless he wanted something, you know. Mum, can you look after the kids? Mum, can you bring so-and-so? Mum, how are you doing? Or can I borrow the car? All of that kind of stuff. Then he'd ring, but not, are you all right? It's very unnerving. Yeah, so it's been the oddest experience, I think. And it's going to come again. I'm almost certain that in September, maybe October, we'll be in lockdown again. And I don't know. I've been very lucky in that I've lost no one. No one I know, not a member of my family. I've lost no one to COVID. And I'm eternally grateful for that. There must be huge numbers of people out there that are grieving, and that sense of not being able to say goodbye, not being able to do all of the things that you would normally do and as a human you would want to do. But I'm not sure that I'll be able to do it this time, you know, when this next push comes. Good Lord willing, the creeks don't rise, we'll probably get a virus. We may well get a vaccine. We already got the virus. Vaccine, and that will help us. But it's such a changing virus. It changes quite rapidly, makes different detours and stuff. Finding a vaccine will be incredibly difficult, I think. So lockdown's been strange, but I live on my own, and some of it was just normal, just plain normal. I missed the gym, I missed the interaction with my family, I missed hugging, I missed the pub. Not that I go to the pub very often, but it's just the thought of being able to walk into a pub or a cafe and just sit there and have a cup of coffee or a beer and move on. Several holidays were cancelled. My niece in Germany was to be married on the 6th of June, and that was cancelled, and I was so looking forward to that. Luckily, I hadn't bought my outfit yet, so it's not such a great thing. And I was supposed to go to Chamonix, walking in the mountains, and there was somewhere else, I can't remember where I was going. I've been, and my inability to go down to Wales and see family, that's been a big thing. Wales was in deeper lockdown than us, and I was definitely not going to do a Dominic Cummings and bend the rules. And so I desperately tried to do it. But as soon as it was opened up, as soon as they said you can travel more than 5 miles, I was there. Sort of like 3 days later, I was down, and I stayed. I was only going to go down for a long weekend, and I stayed a fortnight. So that gives you some indication. I was going around everybody, and everybody's, whee! You know, it was really exciting. Because I ordinarily go down about once a month and stay just a couple of days. But I stayed a fortnight, and last week I was on holiday. We went, every year I go with my son, daughter-in-law and 2 grandchildren down to a bay on the Gower, and we spent a week there again. Fabulous weather, and it was lovely, and it was nice, and we were socially isolated because the beaches on the Gower are not like the Brighton beaches. Nobody does crazy things. Everybody sits, and I don't know whether it's the Welsh or what, but we kind of obey rules better than you English, I think. How horrible to say that. Sorry. I've lived here 45 years and I'm still Welsh. What can I say?